This is a repeat of the 2011 Champions Cup final, and if we get anywhere near the drama and quality of that game, we're in for a real treat. My name's Mark, let's talk rugby. Champions Cup semi-finals, or Heineken Cup semi-finals, as they're known for years and years. Such a happy relationship with that name down through the years for lots of different rugby fans. For my money, when that was the name, it was also a better tournament. But that's a discussion for another day. We're going to go through talking about each. I'm going to do a video on each of the semi-finals. This one is on the Leinster versus Northampton, and so semi-final number 1, it's on Saturday the 4th of May. So if you're watching this today, it goes live, that's tomorrow, and kickoff is 5:30. It's in Croke Park in Dublin. So Leinster, the hosts in this one, not actually the home side, even though a lot of English media would have you believe that they are. So we have RTE, TNT Sports, beIN Sports, Flow Rugby, and Super Sport as options for you for your watching pleasure for this one as well. And it's a repeat of the 2011 final, that famous final, as I mentioned in the preview. And if this one is even a patch on that, it's going to be brilliant. But we're going to go through, first of all, we're going to go through each of the teams. We're going to talk a little bit about team news as well. Then we're going to go through how each of the teams have reached this stage of the competition, starting from the pool stages. We're going to talk about kind of recent results for them as well, domestically, where they're going, how they're going domestically, and then talk about how I think the game itself is going to go. So we're going to start with the host team with home country advantage, that is Leinster. So Leinster team, fullback is Kieran Frawley, right wing Jordan Larmour, centres Robbie Henshaw and Jamie Osborne, left wing James Lowe, halfbacks Ross Byrne and James Gibson Park, front row Andrew Porter, Dan Sheehan, Tyke Furlong, second row is Ross Maloney and Joe McCarthy, back row Ryan Bird, Josh Van der Fleer and Caelan Doris. On the bench then we have Kelleher, Healy, Ala Latoa, Jenkins, Conan, McGrath, Harry Byrne and Jimmy O'Brien. So 5-3 split for Leinster there. There are a few kind of selections to talk about. It's more to do with who's still out injured, and big one is Keenan missing at fullback. Frawley has been very good this year, and the fact that he can come into the line and be a second playmaker as well is nice. But you wouldn't find many Leinster fans who, if Keenan was available, would swap Keenan for Frawley, or like to keep Keenan in, if you know what I mean. They wouldn't put Frawley in there for him, but still, Frawley's has done decent. Then in the centres as well, there's no Gary Ringrose. Gary Ringrose has, he's an exceptional player, and you can't get away from that. He's just got brilliant skills, but I think Jamie Osborne has deputised very well, albeit at 12 rather than 13, and obviously Henshaw's there in a 13. But I would have felt that it would be a little bit unfair on Osborne if he had missed out on this. And that might have been what happened. Like he might have dropped completely out of the squad if they went with a Ringrose Henshaw centre pairing there. So it's good to have Osborne involved, and it's nice as well because I talked about last year where it felt like the team was very stale in that it was all of the players who would be away with Ireland, and then they come back in and they'd basically replace the almost the entire team, and it felt like two separate teams. Whereas this year there's a bit more mixing, and Osborne has been a big part of that as well. Then the other one, two more to talk about. One is the continued absence of James Ryan in the second row. He is a big miss, I think, because he's the guy that does a lot of one-seam work. He would be the guy that would be countering the likes of Courtney Laws, in terms of just getting in there, making sure that the Leinster's own ball is secured, doing those clear outs, etc., and doing a lot of donkey work. And then also, his ability in the line out as well is something that Leinster will miss. But he's been out for a long time now. So Ross Maloney and Joe McCarthy have been doing a decent job in there, and then they've got Jenkins as well there to back them up. So a lot of work on their shoulders, though, I feel, because there's going to be a big task, I think, to counter the Northampton second row and back row as well for this Leinster team. The other selection then is Jimmy O'Brien, is one of the injured guys who actually made it back, and he's on the bench, so it's nice to see him there as an option. How fit he is or not, I'm not sure, because I'm guessing that he's got to have at least 25 minutes in his legs, and probably more than that if they put him on the bench, because obviously if somebody goes down injured early, he could be playing the full 80. I think that might be why Gary Ringrose, we keep hearing about, almost every week now, it's like, Ringrose is fit and available, and then it comes to the selection, and then he's not fit or available. So I'm not sure what's, maybe a little bit of mind games going on with that. But Jimmy O'Brien coming back has to be a real positive. We'll talk a little bit more about the team now before we move on to Northampton. So just going down through them, as I said, Frawley has deputised very well for Keenan there at fullback. Jordan Larmour has had a real resurgence this season, and I think this is one of his best seasons in a long time, and it's great to see him there as well, because for like a lot of last season saw him kind of pushing things and running up blind alleys and stuff, whereas now he's more focused on being a benefit to the team. And he still goes on his mazy runs and stuff, but he's actually looking for the support, or looking to get over for a try, rather than just beating players seemingly for the fun of it. Centre then, Robbie Henshaw's, I think, has done well at 13 there as well. And with Osborne in there, Osborne has been one of the, not really a find, because he's been around the squad for a while, but the fact that he's now elevated up to this level where he's a consistent starter for the first team in big games like this just shows how much he has come on this year. James Lowe, we always talk about that big left boot there, but there's, because you got Frawley and Osborne in there as well, you got more options too, in terms of kicking out from the back too. So it's not going to all be on his shoulders, which is great to see. But also, he just has that brilliant finishing ability as well. You get him close to the line, he's probably going to get over for a try. Ross Byrne, I felt earlier on in the season when Ireland, he wasn't in the Ireland squad for the Six Nations. He was just coming back into the Leinster team, and you could see that he was really forcing it, maybe trying to impress Andy Farrell and remind Andy Farrell that he's still an option at 10. But he seems to have settled more back into the team now, and because of that, we're actually seeing improved performances from him. Jameson Gibson Park just absolutely on fire this season, especially recently. Andrew Porter so much better than we saw him last season. Dan Sheehan, is he the best hooker in the world? He's got to be in the conversation, right? Tyke Furlong looks to be back to his best as well. Tragically, obviously, he had a bit of time away because of the passing of his father, but it seems that time away has actually done his game the world of good as well. Ross Maloney, as I said, an able deputy for Ryan there in the second row. Joe McCarthy giving that real animal edge to the second row that Leinster and Ireland have missed for a long time. Ryan Baird, Again, another player who I feel is much improved this year. We're seeing less of the kind of flash galloping giraffe that we've seen in previous years, but more of him, doing his bread and butter basics and do them very well. Josh van der Fleer, coming into a little bit of form now, which is nice because he definitely dropped off, last year and the beginning of this year as well. Now we're seeing him getting close to that level where, he was World Player of the Year. Caelan Doris, for me, probably, along with Sheehan, Leinster's most impressive forward in the last kind of 12 months or even more than that. Brilliant, and it's nice to see him getting the captaincy there with, both Ringrose and Ryan out at the minute. And then on the bench, then you got Kelleher. Got to be, again, if Sheehan's one of the best hookers in the world, Kelleher has to be one of the best replacement hookers going around. Cian Healy, it's amazing to see him still around. I really thought that when he missed the Rugby World Cup that would be it for him, but no. Al Alatoa, having he's there now with a chance to kind of make amends really for last year's final where he gave away a Sydney penalty right at the end when Leinster were looking for that score that could win it for them. But for me, he's been a brilliant option to have for Leinster, especially when the likes of Furlong aren't available in the team. Jenkins then, and again, a nice option to come off the bench. Conan, those lovely soft hands and, that ability to get them free and offload through the tackle and his carrying ability as well. McGrath, it's a hard act to follow to come on for Jameson Gibson Park, but I think McGrath certainly will give us all when he comes on. Not sure how long he'll get, maybe the last 10 minutes or so. Harry Byrne backing up for his brother. Obviously he was involved in the Ireland squad this year when his brother wasn't, so it's good to see actually both of the brothers fit and available, because you don't see that very often at Leinster. And we talked about Jimmy O'Brien as well coming onto the bench there. So really nice selection there. Obviously some of the big names are out. We prefer to be in, but anyone, if Leinster do lose this game, if anyone complains about players being out or whatever, they're just talking crap, because this is a really strong Leinster team, and if they lose to Northampton, it'll be because that they didn't turn up and perform. It won't be because of who wasn't there on the day. Now let's go on to the Northampton team. I don't know why it's in this format. This is the way Northampton put it out themselves. So fullback, you got Furbank. Furbank has been in exceptional form this year. We got Ram down right wing. We got Freeman and Dingwall in the centres. We got Hendy there on the left wing. The halfbacks then, we got Finn Smith and Mitchell. Front row then is Waller, Langdon and Davison. The second row is Moon and Coles. Back row then, Laws is the captain, Graham and Augustus. And then on the bench then we got Matabasi, Iogun, Miller Mills, Maya Vanu, Scott Young, James Litchfield and Seabrook there as well. So let's have a bit of a chat about the Northampton team. I obviously don't know anywhere near as much about them as I do the Leinster team, but as I said, Furbank has been in great form this year. I was very surprised when England opted to drop Freddie Stewart and bring Furbank in, but Furbank's performances absolutely showed that was the right decision to do. The guy was sensational through the Six Nations, and he's been the same as well for Northampton. Ram has been decent on the wing. Freeman has been there as well on the wing, but he's moved into the centres. for Northampton, and he's there beside Dingwall. So Dingwall saw a bit of him in the Six Nations, and a decent player, but I think he's one of many options for England in the midfield. Hendy, I was very impressed with him. His finishing ability is exceptional. So Leinster got to definitely watch out for him. Finn Smith has a great season at 10 as well. And beside Mitchell, as halfback combination, that they're really good. The front row, haven't seen too much of them. They have, they've done fairly well what I've seen of them. Mostly like the Munster game and a bit both Munster games, and a bit against the Bulls as well. But that was kind of only highlights, so it's harder to judge him on that. But they've gone pretty well this season. Moon and Coles, with there. In the second row, and they've got Laws there as well as kind of another option in their line out too. So expecting them to be kind of strong in the set piece. Laws is such a nuisance at the breakdown, and he's kind of had a little bit of resurgence, kind of similar to Larmour really, where he the last couple of seasons, I wouldn't say that he was at his best, but this season he really has kind of, as I said, had a bit of resurgence there, and has been so great at that breakdown, winning penalties and getting turnovers. And then he's got Graham and Augustus there. What I've seen of them, they look decent in the back row, but they know that they're going to have to really step up the game as well, facing the likes of Van der Fleur and Doris. I'm not saying that they can't do that, because again, it's games like this where players really make their name when they burst onto the scene, and that's what can happen for these guys as well, at this real top level to perform. And then the bench, a lot of the names there aren't all that familiar to me, like the likes of Matavesi, Miller Mills, certainly know them, but some of the others there, it's kind of let's suck it and see almost, when those guys come on. At least for me, obviously, the Saints fans will know those guys far better than me. In terms of then the selection changes for Northampton, we've got Noel Ludlam, who's a big miss for them, because I thought he was, again, another one of these players who was having a fantastic season. And no Slight Home on the wing either. So with him out as well, I think Slight Home and probably would have been Slight Home and Hendy maybe on the wings would have been two real finishers out there for them. But Ram is no slouch either, and you got Freeman there too. So there's plenty of options for Northampton in terms of their attack as well. So we're going to look at now how each team made it to this stage of the competition. We're going to start with Leinster. So Leinster in the pool stages started off with that big statement win, 16-9 away to La Rochelle. And that, for me, up to then in the season, like through the URC, Leinster had kind of looked like there was something missing, that they hadn't produced a complete performance. This wasn't quite complete, but it was definitely a big step up from what we'd seen from them previously during the season. Then Sales Sharks then sent over an understrength team, and Leinster, they actually did really well against Leinster, pushed them a lot. Leinster coming through with the win out of that one. Then Leinster saw off Stade Francais pretty easily, 43-7 after that. And then the other big statement win that they had in the pool stages was they went to Welford Road and they beat the Tigers 27 points to 10, and that's why basically this semi-final is happening in Croke Park, because Leinster got that seeding, that second seeding, that meant that they had home country advantage for this semi-final. Round of 16 then, against the Tigers again, and this time it was at the Aviva Stadium, and Leinster running out pretty convincing winners, 36 points to 22. And in the quarterfinals, Stade La Rochelle again, and Leinster's best performance of the season by a long shot, 40 points to 13 against a team that have had their number for such a long time in knockout rugby. Beat Leinster in the last two finals, but Leinster come through on that one, and that's how they got to this semi-final. Now we'll have a look at Northampton's path through. So started off, this is first game up, Glasgow Warriors 19, Northampton Saints 28 at Scotstoun Stadium. And this is when, for me, I kind of sat up and took notice, because Northampton Saints were abject in last year's Champions Cup, and suddenly they're going to, a decent team like Glasgow and going over there and winning the game in that style as well. And at that point, then I was thinking, okay, well, maybe we got to keep an eye on the Saints. Then a close game, but still a win against Toulon, 22 points to 19. Then an easy win, 61 points to 14 against Bayonne. And then the big game that really, emphasized the kind of traits that we saw in that win against Glasgow was the win against Munster, coming back against Munster and being able to get that win at the end, 26 points to 23 at Thomond Park. And that, to me, then said, yeah, you've got to take Saints seriously this year. Into the knockout stages then, 24 points to 14 against Munster, this time in Franklin's Gardens. And then into the quarterfinals. Yes, the Bulls sent a weakened side, but you can only beat who's in front of you, right? And Saints did it very convincingly, 59 points to 22. That's how both teams got here. Leinster, in the semi-final, yet again, they've been in so many semi-finals and finals over recent years, but still haven't got their hands on the trophy. For a while, like they've been hunting, that fifth star, but it's eluding them. But every year it's like, is it going to be our year? You think so, and then it's not. So it's still semi-final stages, and against the Saints, it's going to be a big job for them. But Leinster, they've been in the last two finals, and they want to at least get there again this year. Northampton, on the other hand, last time Northampton made a semi-final or beyond was 2011. So that famous 2011 game against Leinster, when it looked like Northampton had the game wrapped up at half-time, and Leinster, inspired by a Johnny Sexton speech in the dressing room at half-time, turned around so quickly in the second half and ended up winning comfortably. So that's kind of what's, the experience of these two squads. Leinster with tons of experience at this level in this competition, and whereas this Saints team, for the players, really not much experience at this level, other than maybe some of the kind of elder statesmen in the team. But for most of them, first taste really of a semi-final, and that can be a good thing for a team as well, because if you've got to a few semi-finals and you can't quite get over it, then it can be a bit of a mental block. But when it's the first one, there's lots of young talented players in that team. They can just say, okay, well, let's just give it our best, and that can end up, give it a real go, and that can end up being enough to get them over if they can kind of catch Leinster a little bit cold. Because the other thing we need to talk about is this Leinster team at least have not played for 3 weeks, because they sent another squad of Leinster players down to South Africa to do the tour down there, and they got beaten pretty handily in their two games. There was the Lions and then the Stormers that beat them. So these Leinster guys, potentially Northampton could catch them cold because of the fact that they haven't played for a few weeks, and you could see maybe in the first quarter of the game, maybe Leinster's handling or running lines, etc., not quite being where they should be, and then that opens the door, I think, for Northampton if they can capitalise on that, get themselves a few scores, and then make Leinster chase the game. That could completely change the dynamic of the game. If Leinster click early, I feel it's going to be a much harder task for Northampton to get the win. But as we talked about, both back lines, have huge talents in them there. Lots of finishers in there, and then in the packs as well, you got some real dogs in the packs too. So you're gonna have I think a big arm wrestle fight up front, and then the backs will hope to see as much ball as they can and try and pick holes in each other. Leinster obviously using now their blitz defense under Nienaber, and it has gotten better, but still I'd still say it's not fully bedded in. So Northampton could find some misalignments in defense there, maybe exploit that too. Leinster, though, something that they have retained from their previous defensive system is they're really good at their scramble as well. So even if Saints break the line, Leinster scramble could still save them. So Saints, I feel like they've got to take their chances. If they do make those line breaks, they've got to be able to finish them off, and not get caught and maybe pushed into touch or wherever. So, but on the overall kind of how I think the game is going to go, honestly, I think it's going to be a Leinster win. I think some people are predicting Leinster are going to win easily, etc. For me, I never feel that as a Leinster fan that we're ever going to beat anybody easily, because first of all, the way I've been brought up has I guess a big bearing on it, is that you always have to pay respect to your opponents. And Saints are a really good side. Saints are top of the Premiership, and Leinster now have dropped down to second place in the URC. So Saints absolutely have to be respected in this. And if Leinster slip up, Saints can absolutely win this. And I think it's going to be a lot closer than a lot of people think. But I do feel that Leinster will have that little bit too much for Saints in the end. So I'm going to go for a Leinster win in this one. Okay, so that's the end of our look ahead to that semi-final. As I said, we're going to do the other semi-final as well. Let me know how you think this game is going to go, and maybe I can't cover everything in stuff like this. So maybe if you got some interesting stuff to say about it, post down in the comments, or if there's anything you feel like I've overlooked as well, post it down there too, because I'm always open to people suggesting things as well, because I always want to make my videos as good as they can be for you guys, so you can enjoy them as much as you possibly can. So any kind of suggestions on what you'd like to see in the future in terms of previews or anything else, let me know too. But I hope if you do get to catch this game, that it is enjoyable for everyone involved.